Okay, so we have our quorum. It's 6:05. We'll go ahead and get started. Our first item on the agenda is an update on the Woodlands project. So I'm not sure if anybody's here for on behalf of the Woodlands. Not seeing anybody. So just a quick update. We are still in the process of securing a peer review for the stormwater report. So if you are not speaking or asking a question, please make sure that you are muted. Okay. So I don't see any representatives for the Woodlands here, since they probably know we're not really going to have much to talk about today because we have not received all of our we haven't received all of our responses for the RFP for the peer review. So want to continue? Can you hear me, Rebecca? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I make a motion to continue. But quickly before we do you want me to talk about the signature page? So, okay. So we received some complaints or concerns rather about a signatory who's representing the Woodlands View LLC in an associated stormwater document. So that signature, we do need an updated signature page with the individual who is still representing Woodlands View LLC. This doesn't have any impact on activities continuing on site. Those activities can continue, but we do need that updated information regarding the signature page and the designated officer. But with that, if the rest of the commission doesn't have any concerns, since we are waiting on that review, I would make a motion to continue until the next meeting.
No.
A second.
Don't. It's done. It's over.
I'm sorry, was there somebody who? Okay, do I have a second to continue to our next meeting?
A second.
Okay, roll call vote. Aye. Rebecca?
Aye.
Don?
Aye.
Okay, great. So the next motion carries and this item is continued to the next hearing. So our next item is 474 Main Street, but they sent over a request for a formal continuance, so we can skip on to the NOI for 250 Coach Lace Pond. And I see Steve. Hi, Steve.
Hello.
So I got all of those documents, but if you would not mind just briefly kind of going through them real briefly, and if any of the members of the commission have any questions on these updated stormwater materials.
Yes, what I dropped off was, information we got from the soil testing and some information we got from the lab we took the soil and have it sieved to get a classification. They do like a Title V classification that we use for the drainage. And the rest of it was information regarding to the stormwater requirements that DEP has and how we met all the various requirements and attachments for short-term and long-range pollution prevention on the site. And I think that was pretty much, the documents that were there. You already had the drainage calculations that we did. And we just showed that all our infiltration systems have at least 2 feet of separation between estimated groundwater and the bottom of the system.
What is the separation? Is it 2 feet or is it greater than 2 feet?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is it 2 feet or is it greater than 2 feet?
One was 2 feet and the other was quite a bit greater than 2 feet.
Okay, for the 2-foot one, since it's less than 4 feet, did you also do the mounding analysis?
We did not do a mounding analysis on it.
Something's beeping over there, Dave.
I didn't think my audio was working. Let me mute.
Okay, so that's for your infiltration system. Do you have the site map? Do you have the site map available?
Yes, let me see if I can bring that up here. Can you see that?
Nope, you gotta share your screen. I might have to enable you.
Yeah, I've got the PDF on my screen, but
Okay, first you have to click, if you hover over the bottom of your screen, there's a green arrow that says share screen.
okay, yep, I didn't do that first. Control wheel select. Okay, how about that?
Yep. So which is the infiltrator that you didn't do the mounting analysis that has 2 feet of separation?
Well, it was up in this area here. The slower system will get quite a bit of fill that's gone in. Up here, it's not quite as bad.
Okay, and you have an infiltrating system on top of fill?
No, I mean this whole area is filled for the for the building. So yeah, there is fill, going to be placed onto the infiltration system, which will be, basically a septic gravel type material.
Okay,
We take out the top and sub, and then we'll build up to the infiltration system before we put the stone in.
so infiltrators should not be sited in fill material. And I'm concerned that so far up gradient from the lake that you only have a 2-foot separation between the bottom of the infiltrator and groundwater without a mounding analysis or
This one, as I say, this is the area where it's a little shallower in through here. This is basically sits pretty much on the existing grade. And we just have to take out the top and sub and grade up to it for this system here. And this one is the one that's above the grade. So, but this is where the 2-foot separation would come into play.
So Steve, did you design the stormwater system or was it this person that signed and stamped your stormwater report?
I did the stormwater report with Ed Chang.
Okay. Does anybody else have any opinion, stormwater thoughts? There's a pretty common comment that is thrown around by the department in terms of, citing infiltration and requiring a mounding analysis when there's less than 4 feet of separation. So I'm a little concerned that these things didn't happen. And I'm hesitant to move forward without those items. It's a pretty standard items.
Yeah, I think a mounding analysis would be helpful.
All right, I can go back and we'll take a
What?
look at that, see if we can either raise the system or do the mounting analysis.
Was
Yeah.
there a reason why that wasn't included, Steve? Just out of curiosity.
Just, no, I didn't think we needed it, to be honest.
Okay.
with you. Originally I thought that we had a lot more separation with the fill, but when we went back and did some more detailed testing,
So are these what soil type did you end up with in where the infiltrators are? Like,
it's more of a Paxton material, I think it was. If I haven't got the soil report right in front of me,
Sure.
but it was a glacial till.
sure. So would they have classified as
Loamy sand and tilly material.
So they've been classified as A soils, rapidly infiltrating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the loamy sand, it's not, the rapid infiltration is more the coarse gravel. Loamy sand is a little tighter.
What recharge volume did you use? 1 inch or ½ inch?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing on this.
Sorry, did you use for volume? Did you use 1 inch or ½ inch?
I believe we used a ½ inch.
Okay. If we have rapidly infiltrating soils, we're supposed to use the 1 inch as well. So there's a few things that may need to be recalculated.
All right, as I say, I don't think we used the 1 inch. I'll have to pull that out. But, yeah, the hydrologic soil group was a C. We
Yeah.
actually used a 1/4 inch.
And then another thing is there's a really looking at the I'm turning my head sideways because I'm looking at your TSS report. Street sweeping is really hard to keep credited because there's a significant amount of maintenance that needs to go into it for us to allow that credit. So I would ask that you recalculate. Unless you guys are willing to update your O&M plan significantly, I would suggest taking out the street sweeping as part of your TSS calculation. Probably between the pre-treatment and the infiltration, you would need it anyway.
All right, we do have a storm scepter down below, but the regular ones, we're just using the deep. But we can switch and throw a storm scepter in front of those for treatment.
Yeah, so to get the 80%, you've got to have some sort of pre-treatment before the infiltration system. And that's just all taken together as 80%.
Okay. Why don't we continue till the next meeting and I'll pull that stuff together and get it to you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Do we have a motion to continue?
Yes, I'll make a motion to continue this to the next hearing.
And a second?
A second.
Thanks, Don.
Second.
All in favor? Dave,
Aye.
me, I, Don,
Aye.
Rebecca,
Aye.
Thanks. So we'll reconvene next hearing.
All right, I will get you some information before the next meeting. We'll go from there.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
I don't see Janet. We can probably pick that up later. If she's able to join. The next one is 42 Henry Street.
Hi there. Good evening. Ryan Rosine with Goddard Consulting.
Hi, Ryan.
So yeah, we submitted some additional information from what you guys had asked
Yep.
the previous meeting.
Why don't you go ahead and share that data with the whole
Okay.
commission
Yep.
and go through it.
Okay, so you guys can all see this okay?
Yep.
Okay, so I guess the main thing from the last meeting was you wanted to see a narrative for new development instead of redevelopment, even though a portion of lot is it's previously developed. So
the house
We-
is graded, but no other portion of the lot is degraded.
correct, but the work is taking place, and so I included this area here. How we interpret this is that redevelopment is allowed in an area previous to this area. So the entire area from the tree line, including the whole backyard up to the 200 riverfront area, is previously developed because it contains the degraded surface of the house and the retaining wall that's there and portion of the driveway. So we still think it's that. However, we did kind of quickly go through new development standards. Just in this here, we didn't do a full-on one, but we don't meet the 10% or 5,000 square feet. And there's non-undisturbed vegetation for the first 100 feet. So we wouldn't meet those. And for the redevelopment, we are having an improvement over the area by turning, almost 4,000 square feet of lawn into meadow habitat. So I guess are there comments on that or?
Oh.
Or I can keep going through some of the other information that you had
I
We're
think
looking for-
Dave had just unmuted himself.
Yeah, well, again, forgive me that I wasn't at the last hearing. So, but I do understand the riverfront performance standards for development, redevelopment very well. Having not, I didn't see the plan, so forgive me being late to the party. But is there expansion of footprint from the existing house and the retaining wall for which you guys have qualified as the footprint of work?
So Dave, just if I can just quickly, this is
Oh, yeah,
the
please.
this is the enforcement order that went out about a year ago,
Mhm.
where the homeowner brought in plus or minus about 1,000 cubic yards of fill into lawn area, to build a flat area near his house.
Gotcha.
So it's a 1-to-1 slope.
Yep.
Currently.
Okay.
And the proposal is to bring in more fill as redevelopment in a lawn area.
No, lawn. I've had this conversation with DEP a zillion times, and Kim, I'm sure you can speak to this as well. But it's as a consultant, I've tried to push for it, but the lawn is not considered prior altered under the redevelopment standards. It's not even though it still has soil and it still has vegetation on it. Even though it's manicured lawn, for the sake of what qualifies as redevelopment being impervious, junk, or debris devoid of topsoil, lawn doesn't qualify. So in this circumstance, your redevelopment is really confined to where you have impervious surface areas that were existing prior to the River Protection Act. What was that, 96, 97?
Yep.
And then, you know, anything to date. So, yeah, I wouldn't. I've been on that side of the stick where lawn doesn't qualify, but I would hold this to the same standard.
Can you see this, the site plan, the two?
Yep,
No.
you can see your
Okay.
cursor. Sure.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the site plan. You weren't the last meeting, Dave. So
Yep.
so there's the existing house. You can see, so this kind of area is the big area of soil that he brought in. And what's proposed, I'm sorry, there.
Okay.
So kind of moving some of this area around, adding in more, creating more level areas up here. This whole area is going to be sort of meadow habitat. We're going to seed it with a native meadow mix. And then a small retaining wall here to kind of make a flatter area around, you know, to the side of his house here. So that's the only new impervious surface, but the rest of it is just reuse of lawn area within previously existing lawn. And I understand the whole thing that it's lawn, it has topsoil, it has vegetation. But the way we are reading the regs is that redevelopment take place in an area that contains the graded surfaces. So everything, you know, from the existing tree line, you know, out to an area that's previously developed and has, you know, the graded surfaces.
But yeah, but again, the question pertains to what we're qualifying is there's so many different terms in the Wetlands Protection Act between altered, disturbed, whatever. But the regulations clearly qualify what constitutes degraded under the River Protection Act, and that's impervious land subject to dumping and debris in areas devoid of topsoil.
Yep.
So they've clearly qualified what constitutes altered. So we can't consider lawn to be prior altered, even though I agree with you, it has been, right? It clearly was denuded of natural vegetation at some point, planted with Scott's turf lawn and has been maintained as such, but it doesn't qualify as redevelopment under the Rivers 310 CMR 1058.
So I guess, so then my main question is, you know, this sentence right there, you know, that portion of it, you know, a previous developed riverfront area contains areas degraded. So then you guys are saying that only the house is previously developed, basically.
Yep.
Is what you guys are.
Do you have your prior narrative? I think that I think you had it verbatim right in your narrative. Was that
In
right
the first one?
CMR
In the original one?
Yeah.
Believe so.
Let me go back to the narrative that you guys sent.
So something else that we were asking for was phasing of erosion controls as well, and we never, or erosion and sediment controls for this project, and we did not receive that either. On top of, it doesn't sound like you're meeting the riverfront standards at this time.
Yeah,
But you
so
can-
the, oh, sorry. Oh, so
I was just gonna say, you can pull up the narrative, but I just wanted to mention that as you're looking
Mhm.
for that.
Yeah. Dave, is this part of what, this is kind of what we took from, this was part of what was in the original submittal? Is this what you're looking at?
We
I'm
can
still
share
seeing the
plan still.
existing conditions plan.
Oh,
is still up
sorry.
on our screen. No worries. Yeah,
Let me stop share and then reshare. Can you see this now?
Yep.
Okay. Is this what you're talking about?
Yep. Previously developed riverfront areas contain areas degraded prior to 96 by impervious surface areas from existing structures or pavement, absence of topsoil, junkyards, or abandoned dumping grounds. So
Mhm.
that classifies what constitutes prior developed riverfront area for the purposes of redevelopment. So things like lawn don't fit the bill.
Right, and so this
Yep.
is also, so
And
I mean, this
that's
was
the same citation,
same-
right?
yeah,
Yep. Existing structures or pavement, absence of topsoil, junkyards, or abandoned dumping grounds. So And I've been on your side of the table. I
No, I know.
I lost the house in Wellesley to this standard, where
So-
we were qualifying lawn as prior alter.
Right. So I guess then my thought is, I've seen other projects where it's, for example, say it's this exact lot and they want to put in a detached garage in lawn.
Hmm.
So that's a new development.
Probably
Yeah.
would.
Right. The other thing that in the past I've historically, and I was getting away with this for a long time, was segmenting what portion of the lot was redevelopment, what portion was new development, and DEP at some point said no, it's one or the other. You can't have cake and eat it too. You either file as a redevelopment project or as a new project.
I think there are also differing opinions regionally. I know they're working to come to a more consistent opinion, but as far as the central region
Yeah.
goes, the working opinion is what his data said so far in terms of lawn areas.
Yeah, I've gotten this directive out of Northeast Regional as well.
Yeah, they have well, we could have a side conversation about that.
No worries, I know, yeah, with the varying offices. But let me ask, what was there prior to the alteration? Was this area forested? Were there trees that were cleared before the fill went in that was subject to violation? They did clearing and
There was
to generate more surface area for lawn?
I don't know that any of us saw it before it was done, but based on aerials, it was vegetated. There was, and based on our site visit, there was fill placed on top of trees. So
Okay.
the trees were,
Yep.
buried up to like X feet.
Sure.
trees
Yeah,
were
So
not
I could
removed.
understand that, yeah. I
Yeah.
wanted
So
to-
right near where he was dumping it, kind of right near the sort of the entrance, the driveway there were some trees there that the fill got piled in, but then all the stuff lower down, from what I understand, was lawn. So I can quickly go over some of the other things that you had, asked for. So you're right, Rebecca. We did not include a specific phasing of erosion controls, which we can do. But I did want to go into a little bit of detail about what we're planning on doing. So you'd have the silt fence, down where the plan shows, down along the very bottom edge, and you can install a second one as well, a couple feet in front of that one or behind that one, to make sure, it's a duplicative silt fence, what we have here. And then in the lawn areas, what we were proposing, you guys had asked on those smaller slopes in between the different levels, what would be used to hold it. So there's different tackifiers and soil stabilizers that can be used in those areas. And so that's what we would plan on doing. And then you'd also asked further down, I have, what the contours look like beforehand. Actually, I guess quickly I'll go into, you guys had kind of asked for some of the materials that the grid system is made up of. So it's a polymer. This was part of the handout, or what we submitted. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at that and everything. So it's a sort of polymer plastic. And this kind of tells you how everything is stabilized and how it's, put into the hillside. So this goes into a lot of detail about it. I'm not going to go through all that detail, unless you have specific questions on some of this stuff.
No, I wanted to go back to, just real quick, back to the riverfront area regulation discussion we were having.
Yeah.
And also point you to 10.585E. And
Okay.
that's also where this project isn't even if we were to consider this under redevelopment, it doesn't meet E, which is the area of proposed work shall not exceed the amount of degraded area, i.e. the house and the driveway. So the intent is that you would be redeveloping those, or if that house and driveway is less than 10%, you may alter up to 10%. So this doesn't meet those numbers either, even if we did consider it under 585.
Sure. Did Goddard provide normally there are the standards for the riverfront delineation of what is it, A through G, A through F, only if you evoke like GNF, which you need restoration. But standards A through, I
G-
think you said
F,
F.
F would be they would give back degraded area in order to alter previously developed. And
Right.
and G would be mitigation of lawn area. So that's 2 to 1. They'd have to do that at a 2 to 1 ratio.
Understood. But the,
It's also not happening here.
they also, there's one of the other performances is they can't be closer to the river than the existing development, right?
Right.
Right, so would you consider that the corner of this house or deck or the tree line?
Corner of the deck, it would be a structure. Every now and then you'll have a shed that's right at the water's edge and you're like, great, I have a shed that's 10 feet from shoreline. So that's the closest alteration. You might even have a dock that's in the water. Right?
No, Dave.
But,
I would
what?
text.
No,
hey, I've been saved by a 4x4 deck that was 20 feet away from the
I think that's a little bit of a stretch, whether that's worked before.
I also feel the conversation was a year ago was we're not going to do the restoration. We're going to show you with a notice of intent how this project meets performance standards. And that's all we've been asking for is how can this project meet performance standards? And if it can't, can it be scaled back? We're not saying that no work can ever happen, but how can it reasonably meet performance standards?
Right, okay.
So that's absolutely correct, Kim. And I think you've heard some insight, you've heard clearly insights from the commission about what we're looking for and what the commission and central region is looking at when we're looking at what constitutes redevelopment or new development. So within those parameters, not that you maybe didn't fully understand it before, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you have a lot of direction to go in, but the commission can't vote to approve or not or to approve it this evening, it sounds like, because it's not meeting those standards.
Yep, no, I understand. And we can, and like, we'd be happy to continue and I can, we'll take another look at this and see, what you guys had said tonight has been very helpful and we can take another look at this and see what we can do, for that stuff. If that sounds, fine to you guys. But
if there's going to be a meaningful attempt at some revisions, I would be happy to continue and take another look at this.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we're aiming to do.
And again, meeting those standards like we described, you understand what the commission is saying on the plans is redevelopment or not. So making sure you're within those regulations and standards. But I agree with Kim, if this isn't something that is very clearly meeting those standards and or scaling back to meet the standards, we should vote on this now if you're not going to be doing that. If you are going to do it, I have no problem to continue as well, but also be cognizant that at the next meeting, if what's shown is not, then that's what we have to consider. Because as Kim said, we've been dealing with this for a year now, coming out of an enforcement, which we're happy that the work stopped, but we also need to bring this property into compliance and make sure that some of the work, if there can be work on site, can get permitted so that we can all move forward.
Right, I understand. Yeah, and like I said, we will take another look at this and try to get something to you guys that is scaled back or figure out a way for this to be in compliance for what the owner applicant wants to do. And maybe he can't do what he wants to do, and maybe we'll have to see about that. And we'll get that information to you and totally understand about what you're looking for now. Do you still want me to go through a little bit of, this is one of the other things that you had asked me about, what did the area look like beforehand, before all that fill was brought in? So I can kind of quickly go through these maps that we made. So
Can you zoom in a bit, Ryan?
yeah, yep, sure thing. Yep. So the orange contours are taken from Mass GIS, the 1 foot contours from 2021. That's all we have. We don't have a site plan from, pre-violation. So we really don't know what that, looked like. But this gives a fairly decent idea of what it did look like. So as you can tell, it is a decent slope all the way down. So these darker, the bold numbers are for the orange lines, and they match up fairly well with, the contours here. So the base plan on this is the existing conditions, post violation. So you can kind of see it, it brought some more in, whatnot, obviously. This one is the same, 2021 1 foot contours to underneath the proposed plan. So you can see it kind of, the whole site does get raised up quite a bit in quite a few spots. Actually, in most of it. So I hope that helps at least a little bit of kind of trying to understand of what the site, topography looked like beforehand. I don't know if you have any questions or comments on that at all.
There's also pictures that were attached to the last email.
Yeah, I don't have any questions on pre-existing conditions at this time.
Okay, so Ryan has asked for a continuance. Do we have a motion to continue?
Motion to continue until our next meeting.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
second.
Don't all, don't all raise your hands at once. All right, so we'll do roll call vote to continue. Rebecca,
Aye.
Don,
Aye.
Aye.
okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Yep, see you later, Ryan.
Happy holidays.
You as well.
So our next item is, we'll go back to, because I thought I saw Janet pop in, so let's go back to Janet. She was earlier on the agenda. Let's get that done. So Janet, I was looking for a copy of your notice of intent. Did you send that? Did you send that by mail to the central region and to the, is it just a paper copy that we have? Is my question basically? Or was there an electronic submission?
There's definitely a paper copy. I honestly don't remember if I've submitted it electronically. I don't believe I have.
You sent it when you gave it to the Clinton office. It was a paper copy,
Yes.
and then when you sent it to Mass DEP, it was a paper copy only.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have that? Do you have a copy of it on your computer that you could share with us?
No,
Or
I don't.
It was all handwritten.
Mhm.
Okay. It seems that our so
Do
we
you
don't
not have it?
no, we don't have a copy of it because
I can like take a picture of it and get it up on my screen. And is there a particular page?
so your site
Because
plan.
some of it's really just administrative.
Yep, the one that we want to see really is your site plan.
Oh, well, I have that electronic.
Great. Let's look at that.
So I have a, okay, so I guess I first need to clarify, we're talking about my deck project.
Yes, the NOI, the notice of intent for the deck project.
And so I have two documents that I've submitted, and one, so one was a plan from my contractor, and then another is the map of the property. And you want to see the map of the property?
Both. If you could just share both, that would be,
I'll need to actually, I have one open and I'll have to dig around a little to get the other one. But I can make it bigger if you need to make it bigger.
if you just scroll down a little bit. Okay, so that's where the deck is proposed. This is a deck in kind of existing lawn, now that we've established the history of the site.
I'm sorry, there's a garage foundation that we're
Okay, but
proposing to build on top of.
there's an existing foundation that you're proposing to build the deck on top of.
Yes.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Do you have any, or is there any footings that are going to be installed, or it's quite literally on top of a surface or a foundation that's already there associated with the garage?
There will be some additional footings on the,
Okay.
yes,
What will those be? Helical piles, sonotube?
sonotube.
Okay.
What's on the lot now? There's a single family house. What are the resource areas? Is this a riverfront area project or?
Yeah, so this is Grove Street down on the Nashua,
Yep.
on the riverside, right next to Don's house.
Sure. I've
So
got it up
Don-
on Mass Mapper.
So Don is recused. So it was historically like a terraced lawn that grew
Okay.
in that then was cleared, which we didn't see it before. We just saw the vegetated and then the clearing, not the historical part. So once we've kind of come to understand that there's historical lawn there. So this isn't it was more of a landscaping project then, but so she's using some historical structures to put this deck in, it sounds like to me.
Okay. So that
We're greater than
alleviates, some of my questions.
We're greater than 50 feet from water's edge, and when we're thinking about a deck, I'm looking at 10.022, where there may be some exemptions here for that. So in terms of
Yep.
meeting performance standards, square footage, etc. So I don't
Sure.
have a lot of questions at this point.
I don't either, as long as if this is in kind on an existing foundation where what was it, a garage before or?
Yes.
Yep, yeah. If it's in kind on existing footprint without increase, that there's already a pad down there. I don't really have any grave concerns over this.
Yeah, same. So I would make a motion to approve the plans as submitted.
Yep. What do the grades look? Maybe throw some sediment controls on the back side of this as it goes up. Again, you're on a foundation, so I
Yes.
don't see you guys doing any grading. Maybe some touch up around the foundation to prep it for the structure going up on top of it.
I have installed erosion control
Yep.
on the downward slope from the foundation.
Good. Yep.
Perfect. So if we can just tie that in, just to sort of memorialize it in the document, that'd be helpful.
I think we can also condition that, just throw it in the conditions as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so any other questions for Janet in regards to the notice of intent?
No, for something like a foundation on top of, or a deck on top of a existing foundation.
I'm on the same page. Okay, so do I hear a motion to close?
Motion to close.
I'll
And-
second the motion.
Great, all in favor? Aye. Dave?
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Okay, motion to approve with just, some standard erosion control conditions.
Motion to approve as drafted with the conditions incorporating the erosion control and sediment controls as installed.
Yep, I'll second that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye, Dave,
Aye.
Rebecca?
Aye.
Okay, all done.
All right, Janet, I think you're in good shape.
Perfect. Do I need to do anything more, or this is done?
This is we're done.
Yep.
So we'll send you an order of conditions. That will need to get recorded at the Registry of Deeds. When the project's done, just come back to us for a certificate of compliance.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Janet,
you.
for your patience.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay, so let's go back to 23 Coin Street. That's our last item on the agenda. Hi there.
Hello.
So,
Um,
you also could, since Dave was not present at the last hearing, and can you just do kind of a quick catch up? I really appreciate that.
yeah, so, yeah, that's what I was wondering, because Dave wasn't there. I don't know if he had a chance to look at any of the materials, or do you want a quick overview of what we were and where we left things?
So this
Um,
is just quickly, Dave. We did the ANRAD for this. You're muted.
Oh, sorry.
We did the ANRAD for this about a year ago.
So
you were-
wetlands were bound?
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So yeah, just a quick and dirty, like Reader's Digest version of
yeah,
what you're
sure.
proposing.
Can I share my screen? Maybe that would be helpful for
Yeah.
David.
Yes, you have the ability to.
Yep.
You should have the ability to.
Okay, hold on, let me see if I can get it to come up. Did that come up?
Nope, I'm not seeing it projected.
No, it didn't come up yet.
Time lag here. Should be coming up. I'm
I
gonna.
see it. Yep. There we
Okay.
go. Okay.
Okay.
I remember
David-
the lot from looking at this and kicking the tires on the delineation with Tom a while back. So
Okay,
it's something
yeah,
back
so
from-
what we have was a narrow strip access in there, and we had got an ANRAD to define the wetland area that's here in green. The red outline is the property, and as if you've been on the property, there's another isolated wetland here. We did a calculation for isolated land subject to flooding, which it didn't qualify for. And then also, as you climb up the property, there's exposed bedrock and ledge throughout, and it's primarily a wooded site. We just the clearing for the existing cart path that comes in. There's some gravel along the edge of Coin Street. I'm not sure, from years of just erosion and wearing and people parking and such. So there's some clearing along the edge.
Yep.
What we are proposing, this is kind of the overall drainage area in blue. There's two main subcatchments. One is this larger area that drains to ultimately to an existing structure that's dilapidated that ties out to Berlin Street. And then there's a small area of the property here that drains towards Lindbergh Street.
Okay.
What we're proposing to, this is the project, and this is the revised version based on our discussions that we had previously, but basically the layout really didn't change too much. We're proposing approximately a 520-foot driveway, access drive for two-way traffic for 9 residential units, and terminating in a cul-de-sac. The town of Clinton does not have really provisions for a multifamily driveway standards, and that was kind of one of the sticking points that we had. What are our parameters for design?
Yeah.
And given the wetlands that are on the property and the bedrock on the property, we are really limited to the maximum extent practical from stormwater standards, in that we really can't recharge on the site due to the shallow depths to bedrock, exposed bedrock and water table.
Okay.
So per zoning, we could theoretically do 11 units on the property, but by taking out the areas that are 15% and greater and the wetland areas, we're reduced to 11 lots. So we determined, talking with the applicant, that trying to get those additional 2 units really, for maximum extent practical, it really isn't, or to get to full compliance is really not practical. So we opted for the 2 units. Subsequent to our ANRAD issuance, we've met with DPW, had fire flow testing, which really dictated the layout, separating the units. We initially were gonna do one long building step with the property, but given from a fire flow perspective, we decided to separate the units. Again, there's water available, but not sufficient for sprinklers. So the domestic water is sufficient, but the fire flow would be lacking by extending fire. So that's one of the reasons that we did the layout the way we have. Then the other sticking point was this access drive coming in. What we've been doing is hugging and trying to mimic where the existing car path was, but widening it to a standard that's satisfactory to the DPW and to the fire department, and just providing safe access for the residents that will be here. Also balancing in what the act allows the Conservation Commission to grant. Again, with the performance standards for wetland filling, we're maximum of 5,000 square feet may be allowed, given meeting the standards that are outlined in the Wetlands Protection Act. However,
forgive me, I can't see I can't see the detail of the at this scale. I don't know if you can zoom in to the
absolutely.
driveway as it bypasses.
Sure, absolutely. Can zoom right in.
Yep, I appreciate it. All right. Is there some wetland fill and replication proposed herein?
Yes, that is correct. So the green shading is where the existing wetland line is.
Yeah.
And what we're proposing is to provide a driveway coming in, crossing, super elevating the road such that the driveway, I call it a driveway, such that it drains into a 4-bay, which is allowed to then backflow into that isolated wetland area, that low area, and then via an outlet structure, discharge on the westerly side of the driveway to riprap and the replicated, a portion of the replicated area. So in this area, initially we were filling or proposing to fill 4175 square feet. And we've reduced that to 3558. One of the questions of the conservation is, why are we going with a 22-foot wide? And can that be narrowed? We had looked at the Massachusetts State Fire Marshal and various access standards with transportation engineers in AASHTO, and that's really what initially set our 22-foot wide driveway width, with 1-foot curbing on either side, with a 3-foot shoulder back pitched into the driveway, so our shoulders catch any plowing snow into the system, so we get some sediment removal into the 4-bay prior to discharge into the resource areas. What we ended up doing was we met with the DPW. The DPW didn't have as much issue with the narrowing from 22 feet, but the fire department was insistent 23 feet. They wanted us to add another foot to that. Well, I'm like, well, we can make that extra foot happen if we change our curb detail, which is what we've done. We had a 1-foot curb on either side. We've reduced that to 6 inches. And by doing so, we meet what the fire department wants. One of the issues that you folks from satisfying the Wetlands Protection Act was minimize what is altered in the wetland area. The initial, the end of the meeting was that your preferences, obviously per the stormwater standard, the very last performance standards, item 7, is basically to either avoid, minimize, or mitigate. And your view initially was that we were mitigating first instead of minimizing and avoiding. Well, the avoidance to access the property is we really don't have any other choice but accessing our frontage, so we really can't avoid that. Providing a driveway, so we approach the minimizing by reducing the side slopes to a 1-to-1 on that northwesterly side adjacent to the wetland. That reduced our wetland filling and alteration by 617 square feet, bringing us down to the 3,500. And likewise, we reduced the replication area, being sensitive to the Duvarney property over here. They were concerned with the existing tree liners right here, that we were replicating and removing trees, and they didn't want to be able to see this project. So by doing the 1-to-1 slope, we've been able to pull everything back and retain more of the existing vegetation. And Goddard had done a replication plan. I think they've augmented their replication plan to fit in here. The replication area we had by Coin Street, we kept as it was, but we thought it was best to reduce in this area. From a stormwater management standards, we have, again, as you know, standards 2 is for attenuation. The peak and post grades, we were able to do that. That wasn't an issue, but the issue in this entire area is it's very flat. And we mitigated, we matched actually the ponding elevation that occurs. There's an existing swale that runs along the back property line here that these properties dump into, that tie into this outlet structure in this location.
Yeah.
So how we modeled and did the drainage analysis, we actually took this as an outlet structure for a pond and took into account the topography of this entire area. Existing, how high does it pond? And for our post-development, we matched or reduced what was going on by containing more water in this side and slowly releasing it out, allowing this existing poorly functioning structure to catch up during the larger storm events. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. All right. Good. That brings me up to speed.
One thing that we talked about last time, Dave,
Yep.
as well regarding minimize, and something that we went back and forth on a little bit, is the width of the driveway, so not the slope. Which I appreciate that their attempt to minimize that altered area was by reducing the width of the slope in a sense.
Grade, yeah.
The grade, thank you. But what we were going back and forth on is this a private way? Is it a roadway? Is it a driveway? The applicant has expressed that Clinton doesn't seem to have specifics on what is required. And again, I'm paraphrasing. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Yeah. Yep.
About what is required for a development such as this. So the applicant did reach out to the fire chief, I believe, and they sent an email that they had corresponded with them, just stating that the 23, I believe it stated that the 23-foot width was, I forget the verbiage used, but it wasn't a requirement, and there wasn't a comparison with another similar development or anything to that matter, but it was stated that the equipment, thank you, that's appreciated.
Oh, can you see that letter?
20-foot wide. So looking, but they did make a comment about how wide the vehicles are and notes about snowbanks may decrease the width essentially. And again, paraphrasing. I think we can all appreciate access for for emergency vehicles and fire and medical services. However, it's not something that's required within the town, and we're working within the Wetlands Protection Act to be reducing impacts to the resource area. So if those vehicles are able to, and sort of going back to last meeting's discussion, if those vehicles are still able to get through under the Wetlands Protection Act, we start getting into the nice, and again, I'm paraphrasing, and I don't mean to come across the way that it's going to come across, but nice to have versus something that meets the standards and the requirements of the Wetlands Protection Act. So that's what we have to go by, fully acknowledging and respectfully acknowledging what the chief has written here. But for that, back to minimizing, are we able to minimize that width while still meeting the requirement so that these vehicles can get through? And that was the question posed at the last meeting, and I don't know that it's been answered as of yet, because what I've heard is, one second. What I've heard is we were sent this email. We received this email, obviously, but there was no explanation within the plans. You have stated that you've just changed the grade to reduce what's going into the wetland. And what was asked last time was, can you reduce the width of the driveway or roadway, and also establish, is it a road or a driveway?
Right, and just, right, one more thing that, then we'll let you respond is, at what point does a driveway become a road when you're talking about this being a two-way street, essentially?
Right.
This is, if I'll answer the first, a roadway is defined by your zoning and by subdivision control law. This is not a roadway in that capacity. You guys expressed concern with two-way access. Now, let's say this was a commercial property and you had a store in here. This is a width 22 to 24 feet is what you would need to provide.
But it's
to
not,
provide two-way access for access driveway.
and it's not commercially zoned, and it's not a store.
I know it is. I know it is not. But what I'm saying is, I'm just giving you an example. For multifamily housing, there isn't in the town anything that really guides you other than what the subdivision control laws provide you for road access. And that is kind of our premise, what we have, because you will have two-way traffic on here, and your zoning bylaws, access drive shall be arranged for free flow of vehicles at all times. All maneuvering spaces, aisles shall be designed so that vehicles exit from and enter the public street by being driven in a forward direction. So free flowing in and out of the property, that's the problem. And I know you have heartache. You mentioned you wanted us to go to 12 feet. If we go to 12 feet,
We said,
Well, we said minimize.
we said that a standard driveway is 12. That's what, standard
Yes.
driveway is 12 feet.
for
Also,
one home,
Sure.
one home,
Go
you
back.
got 9 units.
can you go back to the site plan?
Sure.
So you've also,
Can you see?
yes, great. Can you scroll down a little bit so you can get the circle all in there? So you also have this circle here, right? So that
Correct.
kind of like is a roundabout, a little bit of a rotary.
Correct. And this, given the site how it is, there's a level plateau. And initially we had done a T turnout at the end, but that ended up taking up even more space. It was just a more inefficient to utilize what the town accepts on a dead end road. But this is not a dead end road, but we use the standard of a 100-foot diameter cul-de-sac. Again, that area is outside the jurisdictional area of the Wetlands Protection Act, but we use that as a guide, again, without having any documentation to guide us. Now, if our previous plan, we had was actually 24 feet of pavement. We had 22 foot wide travel way with 1 foot curbing on either side. So here, this design still has that same impervious width. However, the shoulder we've narrowed from the 2-to-1 and 3-to-1 to all 1-to-1 on that wetland side.
Right.
So we had met with the fire chief and we met with the DPW as to, okay, how are we getting in there? And they're like, absolutely not. You're not going narrower. We're not getting our trucks in there. That was their concern.
All right. Can I ask a few questions?
Sure.
Sure. What is the replication area no less than 1-to-1? Are you trying to invoke any limited project access crossings here with this crossing, or are you meeting performance standards as is?
We're meeting to, well, Tom,
Tom's trying to talk.
I'll just talk.
Tom, you're on mute. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Sorry, headphones are acting up a little bit.
Yeah, you're faint. You're coming in, but I just got.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Okay, sorry. The headphones were acting up a bit. So
All right.
we are providing a 1-to-1 ratio of wetland replication to what we're filling. I could just basically show you a layout of what we're proposing quickly versus what we're filling. It's just going to be a brief diagram. Mika, if I could just share my screen quickly.
I'll stop sharing.
Yep. Kids.
So here's our wetland replication areas. As Mika had previously stated, we're breaking it up into 2 areas, but it's going to be a total of 3,576 square feet of replication, and we're going to be filling 3,358 square feet. So we are above the replication needed for the performance standards. So this is that eastern replication area. We have a mixture of ash, high bush blueberry, red maple, silky dogwood, spice bush, sweet pepper bush, winterberry, yellow bush, and this one is the one that has been unchanged through the permitting process, and it's 2,196 square feet.
Yeah.
And then this is the second one here, slightly reduced from the last site plan that we had put up. This one, as Mika stated, we reduced in the southern section of it to allow a tree buffer between this property down to the south and the site itself, because she had previously stated that she wanted some kind of large vegetation between her and herself, her property, and then the replication area. So we were mindful of that. This one is going to be 1,380 square feet of replication total. So again, a total of 3,576 square feet of replication on site.
Okay. All right. That answers the question. Do you guys require any other approvals from other municipal entities? Do you need approval by ZBA? Do you need approval by planning board? Do you need Board of Health?
Yes, we need a special permit planning board. We need site plan special permit from the planning board. We preliminary met with the planning board in May of this year.
Yeah.
And they had asked, well, they liked the concept. They like the neighborhood feel of it. However, they said, talk to conservation because they're gonna, stormwater is the question.
Sure. Yeah, it's one of those, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? I'd be apprehensive to approve anything prior to understanding that this is also has the approval to get these, special variances as well. So it is sort of the chicken or the egg scenario. In terms of the stormwater drainage, so you guys provided a stormwater report. I'll tell you, it's a bit complicated for me given the site. Have you guys looked at this? I'd hate to make the recommendation to small scope peer review just of the stormwater from an engineer. I don't know that we're qualified to do that.
It's max
You got
extent.
it, Tim?
So
What's that?
max extent practicable. So it's under 9 housing units.
Oh, okay. Does that disqualify us from saying it's the peer review?
No, it doesn't. I just was reminding you that it's max extent practicable. So, I mean, obviously we would want to see that the BMP standards for each of the items are cited correctly.
We will go for peer review through the planning board's special permit process. That Scott Miller from Hayland Ward, I know, reviews.
Oh, good. Yep.
So that'll go through
that's
that
a good point.
process. But the big question was, okay, you're gonna have some wetland filling. That's really the only way we can get in. It's only an 8-foot wide strip that we have to get into the property. So we really need to widen that, in a practical standpoint. And part of that is on a boulder, large boulder and rubble that it really forces us to move away from that so we don't undermine or cause any issues with the abutting property that is built right on that hillside.
Yeah.
So we just thought this was the best fit, working with what's out there and kind of minimizing alterations and kind of following where there used to be a pathway through there. I think one of the issues is with replication areas, we could expand it, but I have a little bit of heartache of cutting trees down and
I agree with
to
you,
create
Mika.
a replication area if we don't need to.
I agree with you, Mika.
Agreed.
I generally advocate for not exceeding 1-to-1, especially if there's mature tree. Like I would rather see mature tree stay and you stick to the 1-to-1.
Okay, all right.
Versus
All right. That was kind of like one of the things that we augmented on this design from the previous submittal. We had more, obviously, in that area. We had double the alteration near the abutting properties on Berlin Street. So we pulled a good 30 or 40 feet of vegetation that'll be retained for a good portion there.
Yep. Now, what are these 9 homes? I didn't see divided lots. Is this just,
These are multifamily. It's a multifamily development. It's a
That's what I was gonna ask.
special
Are they
permit
multifamily? Each a multifamily?
So how many?
Yeah, and the planning board had heartache when we had it all in one, as one long building. From a neighborhood perspective, they liked the look and feel, and it ended up, I was able to kind of fit it in the grade a little bit better by doing it this way. It actually minimized how much site alteration I had at the top, because it's kind of a flat plateau, and I'm kind of utilizing that area and expanding on it, and minimizing the, some of the cuts that we have to do, cuts and fills.
Do you want to share your
to
screen
make that
again,
work.
so we can have the, as we're talking?
Say that again?
Can you just share your screen again, so we have that as
Oh,
your,
I'm sorry.
yeah, because
no worries.
Tom stopped, and it just.
Yeah.
So as 9
apologize.
multifamily houses, how is there going to be a homeowners association set up to take care of, like common driveway and?
Yeah, that this would be yeah, there would be an association, so that the property is one lot. Okay, is
Yeah.
it sharing now? Should be.
Yep.
Okay,
That's good.
yeah, so what we had done, this kind of a flatter plateau area. Oh, I'm getting text from the property owner. He's in Florida. Yes, there's a HOA. They'll do an HOA for maintenance. And what we proposed is each unit is going to have a 1-car garage, internal storage with for trash removal, snow storage. We had proposed the 3-foot shoulder along after the curb, a 3-foot shoulder, and back pitched into the paved area, which ultimately flows into this area, into this 4-bay, and then ultimately out the outlet structure. And we have snow storage along the edge of pavement throughout.
Yeah.
And again, we were able to kind of, with each of the buildings is kind of at a different elevation, kind of trying to work with the grade, and also work with tying into the existing sewer that's out here. Oh, they did the same. So we did the same building plans on 1204 Main Street 2 years ago. The same building plan. The developer, property owner. So it's a similar type, but those were triplexes, and we broke them up into duplexes.
Understood.
So, and again, part of what we've done, we're utilizing the driveway. That is our berm for our stormwater. I have an impervious core in the center separating the water and sewer. So this area, no matter what's done, when you do a water sewer, you have to have 10 feet of separation. But given the shallow depths to ledge, that's another reason we did the design as we did, was that these are basically going to be on grade, and we're going to be filling and covering over the water and the sewer services, because otherwise you'd have to blast all the way out to the street, and that's just that doesn't make any sense, and just making it work. We had initially toyed with the idea of doing grinder pumps, but the DPW said make gravity work if you can make gravity work, so that's what we did. And that's kind of what really set the elevation of the site, coupled with the elevation of stormwater. And again, we're holding back more water than is required, but given the sensitivity of the area, we thought it'd be best to hold it back. And regarding the standards, where we've positioned this, we're doing subtle grade changes. There's a lot of hummocky areas, there's high points and low points. We'll take some of those out and match pretty much the elevation is almost dead flat through this entire area. So we're kind of matching the grades in those areas to what we're filling, the replicated areas.
Okay.
Now, is that 100-foot wetland buffer is for the original, but now you have a new 100-foot buffer zone with your replication areas?
Post construction?
Yeah, you don't have a post construction. Yeah.
So now that this buffer zone is going to be different when you put the replication areas in.
Yeah, it's gonna augment over on this area. It'll be here, and obviously over here, it's gonna push over.
Can you put that on the drawing? The new,
That,
zone?
in future adjusted post-construction, sure, I could even, yeah. That's something that's not a problem.
Sure. And that's fine. I mean, at the end of construction, we're gonna have you guys do an as-built to come in for certificate. of
Maybe that'd be the
compliance.
appropriate time to do it.
Right, and at that time, I would also, as a standard, anytime you have wetland replication, is to have your consultant like Tom go out, redelineate and relocate that, put that on the as-built and verify that that area has become jurisdictional BVW by the end of this project.
Because we have 2 years, yeah, we need 2
Yeah.
years, and that's one of the things that, like, even hard and fast of exactly having that line here. Well, let's say it'd be better to place a couple trees in this area based on what's existing. So, you know, there's some flexibility in the positioning, and that's kind of why Tom had done kind of groupings, that we don't want to place a tree grouping where there's already a mature tree. So some flexibility. So if that could be a condition of approval, adding on certificate of compliance, adding an adjusted post-construction 100-foot wetland buffer line, that makes sense. Doing it at this stage, I think we'd probably have to change it again.
Right, yeah, it was a leading statement I was making in response to Don's question. I think at the time of
okay.
as-built
No,
and
I
at the
would,
time.
I would rather see it before built, because this Laramie Shriver, his house is gonna be inside the wetland buffer, and it isn't
Right.
currently. He might be interested in that.
Right, so, I mean, and some of the other neighbors as well, would be affected.
Well, like in here, you're gonna be coming, it's, I'll pan out a little bit on the north side, if it lets me do it. The computer's acting up.
I think it's just more of something to recognize.
Yeah, I mean, most of these properties you're in, and we stopped, this was one of the discussions on the Duvarney property.
Yep.
I'm sure this wetland extends beyond, but we just delineated what was on our property. I'm sure there's wetland all along here that pushes that buffer zone out even further. But this is a buffer zone from our project, and we can do projected. We're coming about 30 feet, so this is gonna come over. It's just gonna clip that backyard a little bit more.
So,
And-
but still, to
I'm trying
Don's point, it sounds like just noting that it is increasing jurisdictional area on adjacent lots as well. I think it's just something to note and to make sure that we're clear on that for the abutters in case they have any comment or concern.
And can you put the replication area on the other side of the road? I mean, that would be a better idea if possible.
It wouldn't be connected then, though.
Yeah, it wouldn't be. Well, here's another, well, yeah, if let's say I put it over here, I mean, along the street, we could do something in this area as well. Minimizing this feature here, but this is kind of a degraded gravel area here that we're proposing to put in a stone dike. I'm not sure of how well that'll survive in that spot, but
You're right. I agree. I don't think that's a great area for replication. And then if you shift it over there, you're just going to do the same extension of
issue.
buffer zone to the north side.
No, I mean, over there in the non-jurisdictional isolated wetland, seems, it doesn't have to be exactly connected.
well, I mean,
You can connect, you can put your outlet there by the forebay, whatever you call that. And I'm just brainstorming.
I think, so
the
again,
direct hydraulic connection, that's what I was concerned with.
relevant to the replication areas and restoration, or excuse me, remediation on site. I'm still focused on the discussion from last time, and that we still haven't talked about or seen a reduction in the roadway. And I would like to see, again, relative to those regulations that we already mentioned, I'm not going to restate them, how much can we reduce that width and still accommodate because you've mentioned a couple of reasons why, again, talking about emergency vehicles, which I appreciate and understand and respect that. However, you're telling me that this is not a roadway. So it doesn't need to meet those standards, but you accommodated the roundabout, and I understand the roundabout's out of our jurisdiction under certain standards zoning within the town. And you're seeing this area, and again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm just trying to understand the regulations in association with this project and why you can't minimize. Because from what I am gathering, this is a private development. This will not be a public roadway. And it needs access similar to, so the town doesn't plow this, correct? Because
No.
it's going to be a private roadway. So DPW vehicles getting in there, that was something you had mentioned before. It's relevant, but not driving, again, the Wetlands Protection Act regulations and how that applies to this project.
Mhm.
Fire department and emergency vehicles, I understand that does, even though it is private, but you can still reduce that because this isn't a required width for those vehicles. From your response and from the chief's response, it sounded as though there was a smaller area. I'm not saying 12 feet driveway necessarily. I'm not giving you a number because I'd like to see it reduced, which I haven't seen yet. But the way it is now, I'm looking at it and it looks like a two-way road going in and out of a private residential area that you're telling me is not a roadway. So that's what I'm having trouble with.
Well, going through the planning board, the roadway is a totally different set of rules and regulations on Mass General Law. If this was a roadway, it'd be generating frontage that you could carve out additional lots on, do more development, and would be potentially petitioned to be a public road. What we are looking at this as, let's say this was an office building, somebody had a business here.
So I'm not
They would want a
respectfully,
24-foot wide.
respectfully, I'm not looking at, this is not an office. I understand you're trying to drive parallels so that I can understand it. I'm asking you to reduce the access way associated with what it is that you're proposing and accommodate the emergency vehicles as is a concern and requirement of your development, but understanding that we are looking at this project under the Wetlands Protection Act only. Again, understanding if there is a required width that, whether it be fire, safety, emergency, again, requires that it cannot function without it, that's different, but we need to see that reference. And again, maybe this site can't meet that width. I don't know. I'm not saying it can or cannot, but I need to see regulatory or standard specific why that needs to be the width that you've proposed it. And if there's nothing that states that, then I would like to see it reduce. And I'm not sure if the rest of the commission feels the same way, but that's, again, literally driving the access to this entire project. So I'd like to iron that out so then we can move on and start discussing the other items of this project.
Again, this is a driveway. I know you're thinking of it as a road. It is a driveway. I don't know if the look of the cul-de-sac on the end,
It's not
that
the,
allows,
it's not
It's-
that, it's the function of it being a two-way driving path that is appearing to have the function of a road while being called a driveway.
it's providing access, but per the zoning in Clinton, I have to provide free flow access from the property out to the street, and we have communications based on a meeting. We got an email, but we have face-to-face meeting with the chief, and he wanted absolutely, we proposed 20 feet.
We saw that,
And he said,
we saw that
absolutely
email,
not.
but is that based on an opinion or is that based in a regulatory standard? And that's what we're asking for.
Yes, that is. So again, is there something that, and again, respectfully asking, is there a standard that the chief works with when he's looking at access to these vehicles? Can we reference that? Can we see what that is? What number with what width that requires for this type of development that you're proposing? And I think that's something that the commission would see very clearly and not have a problem. That would answer a lot of the questions, I think. And that, I mean, I would consider, or I would suggest that the applicant request a continuation until we get that information, because I would rather not vote on this until we get that answer, because I would hate to see something that you could get permitted and we just didn't have something to reference why you need to be filling that much wetland for a width that's not actually required.
Yep.
I mean, free flow refers to a multi-lane roadway. So you're applying it to your driveway, so it's getting very confusing. I have a hard time imagining that a fire engine couldn't make it down there with I'm not saying, but a 12-foot driveway, he could make it in there. So the fire chief has his preferences, and that's not really our concern unless it's very dangerous.
At the end of the day, you all had folks that said you aren't engineers. So that was your preference. You're coming at it from, I know the Wetland Protection Act, I'm coming at it from a public safety perspective and what we can provide. And make state fire marshal minimum is 18 feet. We proposed that. And
That's a standard.
fire chief was absolutely not.
It was
And that is for that is typically for 6 dwelling units. Here we have 9. So once you got into that realm, you're going to want to be around 24 feet to access that. Here we're going less than that.
So the chair was just trying to say something.
Okay.
Mika, that was when you pulled up that 18-foot minimum was for a road, was it not?
Yes, that's from LID, but that's also the standard. If you have extended driveways, 18-foot rule is what is typically applied to when you have a common driveway. So you can kind of consider this as a common driveway. And for hammerhead lots in town, you typically are 3 lots on a hammerhead drive, but that's not what we're doing here. This is on a hammerhead. You can't make that work from the geometry that's here, and it just practically does not work on this site.
So have we explored an 18-foot wide option?
I had prepared a plan for 18 feet, and the fire chief absolutely said absolutely not. And that's the result. That's that email that what I was showing was the result of that discussion.
Yeah. Well, we weren't privy to the rest of that discussion. You know, I'd prefer to hear it from the lion's mouth. Yeah, but no, I don't disagree with Rebecca's sentiments on you know, hanging on to a standard here. And what's the opinionation? It's opinionated. It's the chief opining versus what's actually necessary.
So I have a design that got 18 feet to work. I had done that and reduced. However,
Okay.
that was a no-go on from the fire department.
Okay, what my suggestion is that, and of course this is up to the applicant if they want to request a continuation or not. I would like to see that plan if you want to submit that so that the commission can review it for the next meeting. If you do not want to submit that, obviously always at the discretion of the applicant, but to me, that is some of your assessment. And as you're assessing the site and engineering the site to meet the Wetlands Protection Act standards. So that's what this commission is looking for. And if you don't believe that will meet the Wetlands Protection Act standards, and you want to go with this, we need to still see that alternative analysis in a sense, but that's going to show that you can reduce this.
Okay,
So-
well, I can, if you, I mean, I have the document, but I didn't forward it to you. I can pull up the.
I personally
Mike,
would
can I
like to
speak
review
for-
it, not in a public meeting where it's new information. And it would have been nice to receive that before this meeting so that we could review it. Since we did ask for it to be reduced. So that is my suggestion versus belabor this back and forth on a meeting where you now know what we're looking for. We're looking for
Oh, I
that
know it.
information. If you can submit it, we'll review it and we'll have questions for you or comments at the next meeting versus just
I
sort
have
of
correct-
throwing out ideas here
I have
informally.
the applicant here. I think he wants to say something.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Hi, everybody. How are you? So as just a matter of fact, we honestly, if we can impact the wetlands less than what we are, that is our intention. So I don't have a personal issue minimizing this road down to 18 feet. The problem that we have with that is that we have to get by a arbitrary, you might say, standard. There's no standard in town, and the only standard is the opinion of a fire chief, right? And if he holds sway over that decision after your decision, what recourse do I then have? Let's say we say, yeah, let's make it 18, 16, whatever the number is. And then we go to the next step and we end up with a rejection. At that point in time, is the board's position going to be that we have significantly attempted to mitigate and minimize the impact that we have on the wetland? And therefore we come back to the table with this plan and, knowing, because there's no way for us to know what the fire chief department, public safety is going to require of us down the road. Am I clear in my question there?
So, Craig, I believe, yes. I just want to make sure it came up the right person. So, as you're probably aware, or maybe not, when you start your process or file a building permit, you sometimes do not get sign-offs from every single department, and there is some back and forth along the way. I understand your question related to the fire department, and I don't have an answer for you because we haven't gotten a issued decision by the fire department. I don't know what their process looks like for signing off on developments or work in town. What I do know is this commission under the Wetlands Protection Act, and we have to review under those regulations. And so that's what you submit to this commission. The planning board already expressed that, or that your representative has expressed that the planning board asked that you go to the commission first before going formally before them. That happens sometimes in the process, but that doesn't mean that the commission standards are not met prior to moving on to other departments. You can file concurrently in other departments as well and be going through the same process. And I understand at times that may be frustrating, but the commission is very clearly asking this project to be minimized in the wetland resource area. Nobody stated a number of it being 18 feet. The 18 feet came from a standard that your representative presented, which is helpful because the commission's asking for a standard. So that's why we're saying if you have a plan that shows that, submit it and we'll review it. If you have a plan that shows that that doesn't work for some reason, we need to have that expressed in a narrative submitted to the commission, whatever width it's going to be. But right now, all we have before us is this, which is significantly wide, again, through a resource area under the Wetlands Protection Act for a roadway that's functioning as a two-way road. And again, we already talked about the flow. I'm
Mhm.
not questioning that. But that's where all of that is stemming from. So
Right.
if the commission were to vote on something that's more narrow and approve it because it's minimizing resource area, again, I'm not saying it will or not, then you move on to, and you're at your discretion choosing to move on to the fire department or planning board, and they come back and say that's not going to work because of our standards, then you might have to come back to the commission, you might not. It depends on if it still meets the standards and if it's still within the project scope. So unfortunately, that's part of the process at times and admittedly a little frustrating, but the commission isn't conditioning this project to meet the standards of, respectfully, the fire department, the planning board, the zoning, but we try to be somewhat aware of those standards as well. And that's why we're asking for those very clear black and white standards so that, geez, 18 feet might be as small as we can make it by standard or statute, but we have a little bit of wiggle room, whatever that may be. That's what we're asking for, and we haven't received it yet. So that's what we have to go by is the Wetlands Protection Act. You as
Right.
the applicant have the ability, and your representative will explain this to you. You have the ability to say, no, we're not submitting anything else, but you run the risk of the commission voting on something that they don't feel they have adequate information on. And
No,
that
I
may
understand.
result, that
Yeah.
may result or could result in a denial based on lack of information, which nobody wants.
Right.
We
So-
want adequate information to make appropriate votes.
What I'm trying to understand is the overriding issue for you guys is to minimize as many square foot
The,
in the wetland protection area as possible. Now it's translating to, in this situation, it's translating to a width of the road. But if we can sort of try to satisfy the fire department and we find a way of also mitigating a greater amount of wetland impact, that is something that would be seen favorable, I would assume, by the board.
so I want to back up a step. So
Mhm.
all what the commission's under the Wetlands Protection Act, the commission reviews it. And again, I'm not going to go in detail, but in general, we don't want any alteration to a resource area disturbance. We understand this is the only way into your site. So the next thing is you have to minimize and then you mitigate. So with that, yes, we want to see as much as this project pulled out of resource and jurisdictional area as possible, while knowing there's some portions of the standard that relate to access. Again, that's why we're not saying yet, anyway, there's no access to this site. We're not saying that. We're saying minimize the impact to that resource area. And that we're seeing the largest impact is the roadway or driveway. So that's why we're focusing on that right now.
Okay. I'm clear. So we'll request a continuance and formally try to get
Documentation.
better documentation from the town boards or the departments, and we will be back.
Okay, again, to be clear, what the commission's asking for is a minimizing and reduction of impact to resource area associated with that driveway. And if
Right.
if you're supplementing that with information from other boards, the commission has asked it to be very specific on a standard or statute.
Okay. If I understood Kimberly earlier, if we impact less of an area, the board is not interested in greater than a 1-to-1 replication. Did I misunderstand that?
Nope, that's correct.
Okay. Very well. So, Mika, I will turn it back over to you and I'll go back into hiding over here and, you know, we'll look forward to seeing you folks, next month.
Are there any other questions or concerns from other commission members that we haven't touched on yet?
No, but I did, again, this requires, what are the variances or special permits that this requires?
Site plan, special
Yeah.
permit for planning board, site plan approval, planning board, special permit for multifamily.
Got it. All right. And you haven't applied for those formally yet?
We have
under-
not
under the
applied.
pretense that, yeah,
Yeah, we went preliminarily earlier this year. We met with the planning board because we have a special permit. We wanted to see kind of with the protocol and the order that they want this done, and they requested that we come to you folks first.
all right. This situation always arises in the context that even if we were to approve an issue an order of conditions, if you were to go to those municipal departments and it results in plan changes, that you would need to come back to us, and that runs
Yeah.
the risk of if it's non-substantive, you can come back as a minor request for minor project change administratively, where we say the work is innocuous. But if it results in any substantive changes, then you'd have to come back under a formal request for an amendment to an order of conditions, which
Right.
reopens the public hearing process. And of course, we try to avoid that for you.
And just another note with that, you would not, if you were to request an amendment, impact to resource areas can't increase or be pushed closer. That would require a new notice of intent.
And so is there a benefit, and again, does that, I don't know, I was going to say, impact your decision if we have the special permit site plan approval from the town, so already in hand? Because that's typically how we filed them all at once, typically.
Yeah.
But we were asked
Even if you didn't have it in hand, if you were to initiate the filing procedure with them and get under public hearing process with them, even if they have comments and
Continue.
feedback, we can be privy to those in real time prior to their
Sure.
issues, but that
Right.
it
And
is helpful.
as Dave was saying earlier, if the planning board is going to do a peer review and we're going to want a peer review, we might as well just do it all at the same time. And
Yeah, and we can't make that decision yet until you filed with them and we know that they're doing a peer review, where we can couple the peer review with theirs and not try to
and I
tack
don't
on twice.
and I'm not sure if this was the question, but I don't think that other approvals would influence our kind of appearing to be a shared opinion that this common driveway could be reduced. So I unless others have a different opinion, I think that is still our shared opinion, is that we could see this reduced.
Yeah, we definitely need that approval from the planning board of the minimal. And I'm not sure how the fire department, I guess you can assume he's the planning board in that case. We need that approval from them for the absolute minimum. That's a requirement in the regulations.
Am I hearing that correct? That, well, from what Member Brown had just said, he wants us to go to planning now instead. We'll come to you folks. They specifically told us to come to you folks first. So again, I'm
Yeah,
just.
well, our
following up.
regulations require us to get the minimum from the planning board in this case. It's right there in the regulations. 1053E, 53(3)E.
Are you talking about the limited project for an access driveway, Don?
Yeah, what's
They didn't file.
1033?
1053(3)E is a limited project for an access over a resource area to an upland area, which, we had, it was on your fee form as being applied that way, but none of the alternatives analysis were submitted to be considered as a limited project. I think you guys were trying to go under a straight 1055.
You mentioned that at
Correct.
the last meeting too, Kim, and they clarified that they were going under the straight 1055.
Well, I'm just saying what Don had said.
So, yeah, I'm just looking with the applicant. I think the preference is to finish up with you folks first. We'll try to get a standard or statute that dictates that
Yeah,
width. Whether
everyone
we talk with
common driveway. What are the, what
for
is it?
common driveway, maybe something from the building inspector, something from the fire chief. They may have some input, some statute that we can hang our hat on.
What is
And I
it?
think give you a comfort level, from a design perspective, I can get 18 feet to work and I don't have a problem with that. But that width was not palatable to the fire department. So again, I'm trying to serve many masters here and try to satisfy everyone. So
The fire
it's an interesting
department didn't
dance.
list a statute or anything. He just said his personal.
Yeah, it was just through the correspondence and but that's kind of following with again for roadway. And I think that's he's not looking at it, he's just that he can physically fit his truck in there, his ladders and stuff.
I hope they can fit it in under 18 feet because some of these streets in Clinton, when there's cars parked on both sides, are far narrower than 18.
Yeah, correct. I understand. Okay, so I guess we'll be continuing and get some more feedback on the statute. And if we get something more favorable in the defining the width into the 18-foot realm, we can submit that plan because we had revised the plan for that purpose and just with the assumption that we were in the clear, but then we got feedback last minute that no, we want this width. So
okay.
But I'm getting...
Before we move to a continuance, I just want to make sure that we afford an opportunity for any public questions or comments at this time. We did receive some correspondence that I need to enter into the record. If there's nobody from the public that would like to speak.
Yeah, this is Deb Duvernay from 112.5 Berlin Street. And with the recent rain, I just wanted to share some pictures that why I'm concerned about the water back there. I'd like to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yep, we can see your photos.
Okay. So this here is directly behind my house and it concerns me. This is where the road will be going through. That once that road is built, this is just going to push water more towards my house. You know, in the winter, if the road is plowed and there's high snowbanks, when it melts come spring, where's that water going to go? I understand you're putting in some sort of draining system and whatnot, but the water goes into the ground and this out there is constantly wet. So it just concerns me that this is just going to push more towards my property. I have another picture, another few. So this is behind the 112 Berlin Street property, and between that and Coyne Street.
Yep.
The roadway is just over here. The pathway, whatever. This here is behind my property. It's that, I forget, Mika, what you called it. I call it a ditch that collects water and it goes over to the Durkin property and then out.
Yep.
So, and then,
yeah. So this sort of leads to my questions pertaining to stormwater. And I understood earlier that we said that because it's 9 houses, it needs to meet to the maximum extent practicable. But again, as a non-engineer, I can't look at that and say, yes, you have in fact met this to the maximum extent practicable. Or if a peer review civil engineer might look at that and say, actually, it looks like there is opportunity to increase treatment or infiltration reasonably out here, and that maximum is not met. I wouldn't have the expertise to do that. But again, if you guys get under the permitting process with the other entities and they're going to mandate peer review, we would have that peer review. But if you wait to engage in the other municipal entities, then we would mandate peer review, or I would suggest it. Right.
I would
That's-
also vote in favor of that, Dave.
Right. I mean, on the flip side of that, our peer review mandated may constitute much of your peer review necessary for planning board and what they're doing. We could
Right.
talk to them even if you haven't applied for those permits.
All right.
And what I'm looking at, I see the pictures, and that's after that deluge we just had, and a lot of places were flooding.
Yes,
Sure.
but I want to say something. That this rainstorm, this was nothing. It can be worse than this. This is all the time. So every winter, from the snow melting, rain, depending upon how the thaw is,
Yep.
this is typical of that property.
And
Typical.
and what I wanted, one of the points that I brought up, if I can share my screen after she's done, I have numerous photos of that area from the springtime before we even started designing this. After all the snow melts and
I've lived here since 1986.
Yep, yeah, you mentioned that. You were 39 years you've been there.
1986 was not 39 years ago.
Well, when I was
I
in
have
that
to
area
get-
on the,
Hey, Mika, can I just chime in for a second?
sure, go
Okay.
for it.
So I owe Kimberly from the last meeting, because she actually alerted me to something that I wasn't aware of. When she brought up the point about water can be a trespass. And so since we first took over the property and Mika began doing his work, we actually did identify that drainage ditch, which speaks to sort of the whole project and that we're looking at, right? And the need for mitigation. And that the structure that's there has not been maintained in, I don't know, maybe more than 39 years. And is responsible for not just my property, but I am currently, I have multiple neighbors on the other side of Coin Street that at some point in time decided that it was a good idea to dump their water into our property. So there are actually a few pipes there. So our intention for Deb and for every other neighbor there is to improve, not just with the structures and the accommodations that Mika has made, which, again, I'm not an engineer, but he's satisfied that we're going to be vastly improving the situation that's on the site right now. But it's also our intention to work with the town through that planning process to make sure that structure is replaced or repaired, and dramatically affect these large storm events, because right now it's not functioning. And that's what you're seeing is a structure that was meant to move water out of that entire neighborhood, and it's not working.
Right. Yeah. And I just looking at the big picture out there, having walked the site with Tom during the ANRAD process, you can tell that it's a problem area for drainage in the existing condition. I understand that the storm we had yesterday was fairly unprecedented, but I don't disagree that there's standing water there in seasonally high water in the spring with stormwater melt, runoff, and high groundwater table.
There can
and
be
rain.
water there until June.
Right. Yep.
And we've gone, we've
high water staining on the trees that are in there.
Yeah. We've gone
so
downstream, David. We've gone
Yeah.
downstream with that. Mika and his crew went downstream on that functioning drainage system, and the rest of it is working fine. It's just
No, yeah.
we're clogged at our outlet is clogged, and that's what's happening.
Okay.
So is anybody going to be responsible to ensure that's corrected?
That's my intention, Deb, is to because I don't want it there either, any more than you do. So of course, that's going to be a part of our work with the DPW is, we're going to have equipment out there. How can we work together in order to accommodate the common goal here, which is to make sure that this isn't still a problem.
And David, you had mentioned you were on the sidewalk. I don't know if you had walked to the outlet structure that's on the corner of the property. There's a steel plate covering eroding outlet structure with inlet pipes coming off of Coin Street, and also another pipe by where our driveway is. Actually, there's another drain pipe catch basin discharging. There's 2 discharge points that come towards the property on our side.
Yep.
And
who owns that? Does DPW own that, or is this in your plans to modify or improve that?
We haven't shown
that's
the outlet, right?
No, you want me to answer that, Mika, or do you want to answer?
Go ahead.
The problem with it is that it's technically over my boundary.
Right.
The structure.
Yep.
So we have to work with DPW. I can't just go out there and dig a hole and fix it, right? So we
It's
have
on
to
the
work.
neighbor's property.
Right. And we didn't want to bring that up because we already reconciled with the calculations that Mika's done, that we've already solved for existing conditions apart from correcting a problem downstream, right? But it is our intention to not only do that, but also accommodate the neighborhood and ourselves by working with them to repair the structure.
Yeah.
So who would pay for that? Is that your responsibility, or is that the town?
I mean, it's a town structure. And I think that we're open to potentially providing, equipment while we're out there. We technically, I'm not really sure, Deb, because I'm not sure that we even have permission to work on it. We're bonded, we have drain layers, licenses, etc. That's not the problem. It's just, it's an asset of the city, but it's a degraded asset. And, to Kimberly's point, them allowing that asset to be degraded has harmed me as a property owner. And, so they really do have an obligation to fix it, but I'm not sitting here pointing my finger and saying, please do it. I'm saying, it's a common goal and we'll work to that end.
Yeah, no, I mean, right. It was said it should have been fixed years ago. I totally agree. And I just fear that the town won't fix it. This will get approved.
Well, I think that they'll have to fix it because we'll have to, ask nicely first, and then if it has to come to something else, then, we would take the necessary steps to motivate them,
And I think that it falls under, there's no easement there. Coin Street is connecting through the Durkin property, part of the Malone property, and some of the other properties on Berlin Street, crisscrossing without being in an easement. So we have two drainage structures that discharge from Coin Street, public way, onto private property, and then back onto a public way on Berlin Street. So negotiation with eminent domain and who's got prescriptive easement rights, it gets messy for a private person, private developer to do it. But that falls under the authority of the town.
Yeah.
And maybe concurrently with this project, while we're out here, the town gets, via the power of the town, allows us to do it. But again, that's kind of a messy process potentially. But if everyone's on board, then it could be, it's not that long of a run to replace that structure. And
we don't even know, Mika, that it needs to be the structure itself. Yes, but we don't know that it's not just a matter of just cleaning out that pipe.
It could be a clogged pipe for all we know.
More than likely what it is. You got
because when you look at that structure, it's full of leaves and debris, and you have to be looking for it to find it out there. And if I can share my screen, I'll show you what the top of it looks like.
You go right ahead if you want. Nobody's stopping you, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know if I can.
No, you can. Nobody's stopping you.
I can though. I won't, but I can.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it to come up. Is it, did it come up? Share screen, come on.
Where does it all eventually go? Does it culvert underneath, what's that street there?
Berlin.
Berlin Street, yeah. I'm off of Berlin, I'm right down the street. Oh,
All
yeah,
right, is that coming through?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
What's
that's the,
what's in there? Is there some catch basin in there, or is that,
it's just a pipe going in and a pipe going out.
yeah,
That's coming, this is, this right here is the pipe coming from Coin Street, and then this is the pipe heading out to Berlin Street.
right,
And this is the plate that we flipped over that was on top of it, covering it.
yeah,
There's somebody put some things probably to keep the kids from falling in and give it some support to the structure.
right,
But I'm
right,
sure that there was a grate on this thing now and it's got a steel plate over it.
yep.
So,
Yeah, I mean, any of these, any of these existing site conditions, I mean, in addition to your stormwater management report and your proposed stormwater infrastructure for the project, yeah, identifying any other, you know, I guess bottlenecks to the drainage system that exist.
yeah, does,
in the current-
can you
in the
see
current
this picture here? I'm not sure if that's shared.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
feet.
There's somebody standing there. Okay.
So Mika, you at one point shot the elevation of this. And you and I discussed it, right?
Yep.
And relative to the ponding effect, it's significantly lower than what we're seeing on site now.
Yeah, we located the same day we were out there in the spring that these pictures were taken. It lets me, I want to go to the next screen. Oh, I'm sorry. Close out of that.
Right.
I don't know if you measured it, and I don't know that it's actually pertinent for right now, but suffice to
No.
say that there's other issues there that will certainly help Deb and all the other neighbors in the area, right?
Can you,
Yeah.
can you see this picture?
Yes, there you go.
Yes,
So this is the pipe coming from the site.
yeah,
And this is the manhole that's along the sidewalk in Berlin Street. This is a pipe coming from the catch basin that's next to it. There's a catch basin across the street, and right beneath this is a concrete pipe going back towards Berlin Street manhole. And this water line here is right at the invert level of that concrete pipe that's going out. From this angle, you can't really
Okay.
see it.
yeah, so that's not going to drain.
So so you can see the water level here. It's just at right at the invert, a few inches above. Got a better picture. That's the outlet
I see.
going out. So that's flowing. So when there was ponding going on out there, they're looking at that structure, I'm sure there's debris and maybe the pipes collapsed, who knows? When that steel plate is on it, obviously it's going to reduce flow going into that structure, so.
How old are these systems? I mean, I'm just looking at the masonry brickwork around
Yeah,
these.
Exactly.
Older
This
than
is a
39 years.
cast concrete structure, right? Yeah.
But the integrity of this it looks in pretty good shape considering its age.
Okay. So so the bottom line here, and Deb, I'm speaking to you as well, is that, again, I'm not qualified to look at this from an engineering standpoint. I think we've already discussed limited scope peer review. I don't want to full scope a big peer review, just stormwater report and stormwater management. If, you know, presumably you'd have to undergo this with the other municipal entities, planning board or zoning. I would recommend that if you don't apply to those guys first or concurrently with us and get under peer review for all of us at one time, we would advise, I wouldn't be comfortable signing off on an order of conditions without the opinion of a third party saying that you've done everything you can here to protect Deb here. It's a problematic area, which is leading me to beg these questions. But I don't want to be draconian here either. We could coordinate with the planning board or what comes after us and say, who was the peer review consultant they had used? We could use the same consultant and ask that they'd accept our review as credit towards whatever peer review they put you under, so that you're not, you know, paying for the same work twice. I'm trying to streamline something when we don't have active applications into all the different municipal entities. Does that make sense? It's just a suggestion, but I would.
From a peer review perspective, I know Scott Miller from Hayden Ward has been the reviewer on other projects that we've done in town.
Okay, yeah, he's a
on the
registered
planning
DE, I
board.
imagine, or, yeah. Okay.
He's a
Is he a registered
an engineer.
DE? Yep, okay. Sure,
I have
yeah,
another
so planning is-
question. Sorry.
oh, good, was that Deb?
Yeah,
It's still public comment.
Mika, if you could bring up the site map again.
Yeah.
And then, so earlier you were talking about a lot, all this talk is way over my head, but they were saying that the buffer would have to be extended. And Rebecca was saying that the Shriver property, the owners there may want to know, and then Dawn had suggested putting the jurisdiction on the other side of the road. So what does that all mean? How would that impact me that she made a comment that the abutters might want to know?
Okay, I could speak to that a little bit if you can hear me. So the buffer zone, so with a wetland expanse on one property, there's a 100-foot buffer zone broadcast off of that, which would expand onto the abutting property. For something like a 100-foot buffer zone, I don't think that that's too draconian if that line were to shift on the abutting property. Where your neighbor's house falls, just looking at the plan, the buffer zone might get to the house. What happens later, and this is from what the concern of the property owner is, if they wanted to do like a small deck on the back of their house, they may not be in the buffer zone now and wouldn't need to ask permission to do it. If that buffer zone were to go back another 20 or 30 feet, and they do find themselves 8 years from now looking to build a deck and they're in the buffer zone, it doesn't prohibit that, but it's a threshold at which you need to come to the Conservation Commission to ask permission to do it.
Oh, okay.
What I look to, as somebody who designs wetland replication plans myself, I am really cognizant of towns that have 25-foot no build zones and 30, 50-foot or 25 no disturbs, 50-foot no builds, because under those bylaws, if I were to replicate a wetland near a property boundary within 25 or 50 feet, then that's more of a non-constituted or land take by projecting a no build or no disturb, where they couldn't disturb it in the future. But it's fairly innocuous. There's nothing from a regulatory context that prohibits you from doing wetland replications that expand wetlands onto other people's properties. But it is welcome public comment if you want to talk to your neighbor about that as well. That's the reason for public hearings and talking about these things.
Yeah. So how Dawn suggested going to the other side, I mean, is this going to be water that would be coming on more onto our property, where he was saying going on the other side of the road?
I can't speak to that. I don't know if creating the wetland closer to the Coin Street side, it does look like other factors I look at in replication design that I'm confident Tom at Goddard is looking at as well, is chasing wetlands up gradient, where it's difficult to grade those areas out to meet the same grade as the wetland by which you're tying it into. You might leave a deep depression there right next to Coin Street that would result in needing a retaining wall or something of that area. Yeah, but if you see I know, but if you see the yellow concentric lines up there, that's the buffer zone that broadcasts to the northern, up there, right? Yeah. So again, if you were to broadcast that, then they would have a slight jog out in their buffer zone.
Yeah, it would go out the width that we're extending this, it would go out proportionally. But those properties already have buffer zones on them. So we're not introducing buffer zone onto a property that doesn't already have a buffer zone onto it.
Important to note.
But you are moving it closer to their house.
Well, also, I think important to note, which we've kind of discussed a number of times through this process, is that when the the wetland was delineated, the delineation stopped at the property boundary, but the wetland itself likely expands onto these bordering properties anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that the buffer zone from those might already be farther anyway. So I think that there's hopefully some education that's going on to the abutters in that they do have jurisdictional areas likely on their property.
Yeah, like this area, I'm
Already.
sure it doesn't magically stop here.
Right.
And as the picture she was just showing, yeah, this is standing water all through here.
It's
So-
stopped there for the purposes of your work.
Our project, our responsibility.
Right. Yep, yeah, that's very important to point out, right? And that's, you would only delineate to the degree that it projects onto your subject property. You're not going to delineate off property, and the wetland doesn't magically stop at the property bound, which is the red line.
And I think that's also why some of these properties, the neighboring properties, see so much water on their lots, is because it is a wetland.
Yeah, I mean, we have water in our basement, you know, from.
Yeah, so what we've done here, the elevation that the filling that we're proposing to do, and that's why we've chosen these locations, as Dave was touching, that they're on a similar elevation, so that that we did a little bit of grading here to match the elevations we have here, so the water that ponds here, it can pond over here now because we've filled in this area. So we're offsetting that it's like flood storage, compensatory flood storage, that we're giving a place for that water. By us displacing the driveway displaces some of the wetland, and we do more wetland here. It allows areas for that water to pond as it does currently.
So does that mean it's gonna pond more behind my house?
It's gonna it's gonna pond on we're gonna make it pond more on our property. We're gonna expand the ponding area on our area. This green
Right.
area, we're gonna make that bigger.
Right, so
The jurisdictional.
What they're proposing to do, Deb, is to lower the grade so the water flows there first, because currently it's at a higher grade. So they would reduce the grade, which would allow the water to flow there. So it may redirect some of the flows away from other low areas.
What I'm, and again, because I'm not a civil engineer, and what I'm looking for in peer review on this is that, again, they're with this 9-lot division, they need to meet the performance standards to the maximum extent practicable. But I want peer review to say, yes, it is met to the maximum extent practicable. And ultimately, I'd like the peer reviewer to say that this will not further exacerbate flooding or drainage onto abutting properties by either increasing the flow or volume of water that's draining onto these other properties.
Yeah, so I mean, I
mean,
understand that the collection.
It's a fair standard.
Yeah, so I
That's-
understand that the ponding will be on, you know, Big Daddy's property, but I want to make sure it stops right at my property line and doesn't come in.
Right.
You know,
That's the insurance that I'm hoping to have a peer review consultant and opine as a third party, you know, qualified engineer and review this. Yep.
And that ponding, the analysis, we didn't magically make the water stop at the property line. In our analysis, we were looking at what the topography was extending on to, knowing that water seeks its own level and it's going to go to the low points. And that's kind of how we looked at this. Just knowing that the neighbors are going to be concerned, where's that high tide come in? And where's that watermark? And that's what we had looked at.
Sure.
Yeah, because I've lived with the water here, like I said, since 1986. So it's always been back there. That's fine. Let's keep it back there. I just don't want it to come more into my yard because it's being pushed that way because of construction, development, whatever.
So, yep. And that's what I'm looking for. Just assurances that this development project will not further exacerbate an existing issue.
Well, this replication area on the right-hand side is we would need a site visit. That may, to me, that's probably a wetlands. Unless that's really high elevation there. I can't,
Those are, well, those are the existing conditions.
I think it is the wetlands. That's where that ditch goes through with the water.
There's
nothing on
high
the right hand
points in there.
side. That's on the left. I haven't even looked over there, but
So
on the
Don,
right
we
hand
did,
side, the other side,
we are tied
right there.
to,
Yeah,
we are
that
tied,
high out. That's what's the level there? 3 feet?
There's a little high knob here, there's a little high knob here. And that's what we're proposing, flatten in the
It's
south.
the same out level as the wetlands, so I don't see that as being non-wetlands already.
Well, that's why we did the NRAD to begin with, why
Okay.
we have a,
so we are
Was
tied,
it, was this drawing on the ANRAD?
yes, Don, we are tied to the wetland border because we did do an ANRAD for this. We
Well,
haven't-
not if it's
Yeah.
incorrect, then there's a complaint someone can make.
I don't think you understand how INRADs work.
Well,
Where
If
where
they're
where are we
faulty, they can be
Huh?
overridden, so.
I you know what I was doing as you guys were talking, I pulled up Mass Mapper, which recently the state updated 1 foot contour elevations. If you guys aren't looking at this, you're missing out. It's actually scary accurate. But I can tell by the low lying elevation that this wetland does, because the same elevation at which the wetland is, and you can see from aerial imagery that there's clearly a wetland expanse onto 112 Berlin Street, and the other one's 112 Berlin Street as well. But
you know,
is
you
that
mean
your
over
address?
here.
Is that you, Deb?
112 and a half, Giverny, yeah, 112 and a half.
112 and a half, yeah. I mean, you can see it. There's resources online that'll save you paying $2,000 for Tom Schultz to come out and flag this for you, that you can see based on topography, underlying soil types, that with a high level of confidence that there's a wetland expanse onto 112 and 112 and a half as well.
That isn't shown on this map.
No. Again, when they do a wetland delineation for their project and their property, they stop the wetland delineation at the property bound and don't continue it.
I see, okay.
Yeah, I
So-
don't have permission to come on your property to get that and to do that.
Right. Yep. So it's only to the degree that it occurs on the property and as it projects associated buffer zones into limits of work. But the wetland, it doesn't stop at that red line. That red line's
Yeah,
just the property
and-
boundary, but it.
I'm not talking about the red line. I'm talking over here. This perpendicular to the red line green shading. That's very strange. Very rarely would you have a straight line wetlands.
What do you mean?
See right there? That
Right
line
here?
right there.
Well,
Yeah,
there's a high spot here
that
and there's a
green
high
straight
spot-
line there. Green straight shading, not a line.
This,
Don, were you with us when we site walked this and actually walked the wetland flags?
No, I was sick probably.
but,
No, I
but
missed that.
from
I
this
field
point on,
reviewed.
this was
I
the first
field
flag
reviewed.
right
Oh,
here.
good. Yep.
This is the first flag putting on. So that, is this what he's talking
Yeah.
about?
Yeah, all those flags.
We're
He's
doing
talking
a
about all
replication over here.
He's talking about the A series, A28 through A25.
We're doing a
Don,
replication here.
Right.
Right. When they went through the ANRAD process, we field walked this with Tom Schultz and walked his flags and poked holes in the soils and looked at the budding vegetation and validated that his flags were accurate. And it was bound under an ORAD ANRAD procedure, and they have an ORAD on which they're moving forward with that's founded in verification and authentication.
No, I understand all that. I'm just saying it's very strange. That's all I'm
Well,
saying.
we're starting basically at the last flag and we're going from there inward into the site. You know, if there's wetland here, there's a high knob, like I said, it's kind of hummocky. There's high knob here, there's a high knob here, there's a high knob there, that how that undulates through. And that's what and then that's the purpose of doing the NRAD first before we even put pencil to paper that lock that down.
Yeah, and just go directly across the road there, straight across the road to the outlet. And that's where I was saying to put the replication area. Did you think
Here?
about that over there?
Over here, well, we wanted to
Yeah.
directly connect it, so that's, I mean, I suppose you could.
There's no requirement to be directly connected.
I mean, I suppose wetland could be this, but this is a
Well-
non-jurisdictional wetland that we'd be creating into a jurisdictional, I guess.
Yeah, that's,
Well,
yeah, Don.
But
that's-
nothing wrong, there's nothing illegal about that either.
But it's not, you're not creating BVW, you're creating ILSF. If it's not connected, you haven't created jurisdictional BVW. That's why, and it does say in the regulations that it should first and foremost,
We're not creating BVW, we're creating wetlands. Am I right? Am I missed this or something? The replication is a wetland area, not a BVW. Right? Am I missing it?
Don, a wetland,
um,
for it to be a jurisdictional wetlands area, it needs to be a bordering vegetated wetland, which is what BVW stands for. So for it to be effective replication, it needs to be connected to a hydrologic source. It can't just be a little isolated pond.
That's my question then. Why are we doing BVW replication and not a wetlands replication?
okay. There's a difference between bordering vegetated and isolated vegetated wetlands. They're both the same in context of hydrology in terms of the vegetation that they support. But only bordering vegetated wetlands are jurisdictional under the Wetlands Protection Act. And that's what we go by. We don't have a local bylaw that has any jurisdiction. And the standards for replicating BVW is that bordering vegetated wetland needs to be replicated at a 1-to-1 ratio. You can't compensate with isolated vegetated wetland for a take of bordering vegetated wetland. That's why it's not possible to put it on the opposite side of that road.
He's muted.
All right. Kim, pending other further public comment, I think we're probably in a position to move this towards a continuation.
So I just wanted to enter into the record
Yeah.
correspondence we received from a neighbor commenting on this, if there aren't any other people in attendance to comment. Okay, so we received a letter. I listened to the meeting last night. It's in cursive, so it's in like a fine script. So I will share my screen and I will do my best to enter it
Stop
into
sharing.
the record. Okay. So this is from the Durkin property. So I called into the meeting last night and listened to the plans for the development. I listened to Debbie Duvarney speak about flooding in heavy storms or snow, or when snow is melting, and how the water from the wetlands goes into her yard and cellar. I have the same problems, and totally agree with her. I get lots of water in my yard and cellar. This is one reason I object to this development. 2, it destroys the whole ecosystem in the area. 3, the cutting down of lots of trees is not good for the environment. Trees absorb, I think it says absorb the CO2 in the area and prevent climate change and global warming. 4, people in the area don't feel like big trucks and tractors going down, up and down Coin Street, and then it gets cut off. Something about old water, sewer, and gas pipes. I certainly don't want dust and dirt in the area, especially during the summer months. It's not good for people with asthma and other breathing problems. The elderly in the area don't want lots of noise from construction work in a normally quiet neighborhood. What would the impact of traffic be on, I think this is Berlin Road, Coin Street, and Kilmurray Street? What will be used to heat the buildings, oil or gas? If it goes if it goes there, the
It's gas.
potential for a fire, and the department can't get into the area. Sincerely, Jean. So I think we've discussed a number of these, but certainly some of the items like, you know, dust and noise are maybe outside, some of it may be outside of our jurisdiction, but some of it could be addressed through conditions during the construction period, particularly with dust. So I just wanted to make sure that was entered into the record since we did receive that correspondence. And if there
Yeah,
were
we weren't proposing gas, so it's either gonna be either electric or oil.
okay.
But again, that's again not pertinent to. And the wetlands that we're replicating, so anything with trees, we're planting trees, so from that perspective, and that's the property that, the Durkin property, the woman that wrote that, that's the property that contains the dilapidated drainage structure. So their permission is needed to make any repairs to that drainage system. If it warrants, if the town so desires. But again, our approach was work with what on our property, what we can control on our side. I have no control over what goes on off-site.
Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
there-
I think all of those, the comments that are pertinent to us will be addressed through peer review and through the public comment period. And yeah, some of them that are not germane to us pertain to, you know, that are outside of, beyond our jurisdiction.
So we're continuing to at least get some standard comments as to justifying the width. That's the really what I'm hearing from what Vice Chair and the Chairman. And then obviously you're David's looking for a peer review on just the stormwater management components of this, and potentially I'm thinking again, use the same consultant that the town is using, the other boards use. So I think that it just makes sense that you're not paying it twice.
Right, absolutely, yeah, no, I don't want to, you know, have a large scope, have a big budget peer review, and keep it consistent with what the other municipalities are using anyway, so that they're not going to hit you again.
Yeah, I wouldn't have an objection to if you want to do peer review on this to Scott Miller. That's perfectly acceptable, because I mean,
Okay.
ultimately it's going to be on his desk for planning anyways.
I think that's
Sure.
fine.
Let me, we can contact the planning board, find out who they're using, if that's who you're talking about. Scott Miller, is that?
Yeah, from Haley and Ward.
We just
Oh,
went,
Haley and Ward's reputable, sure.
just went through this whole thing with 474 Main Street. in
All right.
terms of trying to coordinate with the planning board, so.
Then no worries. Then I'll leave it up to you. If you don't mind using him, we could request a bid from him. If you want to cost compare, we could send bids off to a few firms. But again, to streamline this with your streamline.
I think Craig, I think he'll agree. I mean, if they want a peer review to check it, to use the same peer review that the planning board uses, it just makes sense.
Right. And that's
Craig, what do you think?
Yep, absolutely. And the two things I'm asking out of the scope is one, if you guys have looked at all practical alternatives, right? They're not considering impractical things, but and yeah, and just again looking for reassurances that the proposed drainage will not exacerbate existing flooding issues on abutting properties. And that's it.
Right.
So with that, I think those are the two things to get you guys to a permit, to get your order of conditions. Again, the commission is looking for further alternatives analysis on the width of that roadway and substantiation on the standards and necessity of width, and peer review. I think are the two things we're looking for. I don't know if Kim or Don have anything to add.
Yeah, just I think we're looking for some regulatory backup on the width of the common driveway.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to continue?
Yes, I would make a motion to continue pending additional information requests as we discussed.
And a second?
A second? A second?
Great. All in favor, roll call, aye. Don,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
great.
All right.
So we'll see you
Thank you,
next
guys.
time, and if you don't have it, if you don't feel like you're gonna make it to the meeting, let us know and we'll stick you on the next one.
Okay,
Thank you.
will do.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Bye now.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any more? I'd hate to cut short on Gloria. I love Gloria, but I need to cut. Are we done with the public hearings and on to administrative businesses?
Also, I also really need to go. So if,
I'm so sorry. Yeah,
so if,
I'm
is
running behind schedule and I have like, we're getting ready for Christmas. I'm wrapping presents like around me as we speak.
Gloria,
Can I make an observation? I sent you a
Yes.
report. Oh, wait, got the report, right? There's nothing new.
okay,
And it basically, the only thing, and I know we've talked about it before, is the Rauscher Farm request for FY24 expenditure not to exceed 5,000.
okay,
And I just need to know, I need to proceed particularly with the grants to the DCR for
right,
for that, and there's 1,000 cost match in that expenditure list. So we've talked about it before, so I've just documented it clearly.
great.
I don't believe you need to vote on it or anything.
I don't think we do. I think because it's part of the expenditures and you're just documenting it as your overall, I think that I would approve going forward with that, certainly. I know we've talked about that grant in depth.
Yeah. Okay, and everything else, it's not new, it's updates on everything ongoing.
Okay.
And all leaving, I just say, Merry Christmas to you. But you know, if there's anything here that's not clear, you can email me in the sense that it would be a comment on a report that is in the record now, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Gloria,
Happy
you're
New Year.
amazing.
Thank you.
I have a very patient wife here behind me who's trying to. She's not patient.
Not patient.
We're having a big wrapping
It's
party.
bedtime.
It's bedtime. Yeah, I gotta go help.
All right, no, I'm just, Rauscher Farm, we're going to keep on trucking
Thank you.
based on the report. Okay.
We love you, Gloria.
More so at
You-
what, 8 something at night, yeah, right?
Right. No, you do so much for Rauscher Farm. We're appreciative.
So as well, stay safe, stay well, have a great holiday festive season, everybody.
Thank
So,
you so much. You as well. Happy New Year,
Merry
everyone.
Christmas. I'm signing off.
Bye.
okay, bye,
Bye,
bye.
guys. Happy holidays.
All right, okay, bye, Dave.